All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. This episode, we are talking about this movie is so hard to classify because this movie, even though technically I guess it's not horror, it's gory enough. I think it classifies somewhat in the horror realm, even though this is one of those late 80s ultra gory action movies that, again, like I said, almost falls into the horror realm. When I think of movies like this, a couple of the other examples I always think of is like, well, Cobra's a good one, more into the realm of this like sci-fi gore action horror feel to it. The other one that I always think of that would be a good double feature for this one is Total Recall. Falls right in line with this one. This episode we are talking about 1987's Robocop.
There is not enough good things to say about this film. I remember very well the first time I saw this, and well, actually, yeah, around the time I saw this, because this was back when we were in elementary school, and it was one of those films that, popped up and, you heard about it. It's in the theaters and whatnot, and then it came on VHS and then to cable. And I remember when I first saw this, I was just blown away. This is one of those films that sticks with you. It's so powerful, so impactful. I can't even, again, like I said, I can't say enough good things about this film. And we're talking about the original version too, the 1987 by Paul Verhoeven, or however you pronounce his name. But it's a great film. How do we dive into this one? I mean, like when I think of this film, it was around the time this came out, and I think Arnold Schwarzenegger's Predator came out either before or after, right around the same time.
That's another one that would fall right in that whole, like this same realm that's like not quite horror, but falls into that sci-fi horror,
sci-fi dystopian,
ultra
future.
Gore thing.
Very, very gory film. Yeah, and this film, one of those things about it is, there's a lot of gory films out there, and there's a lot of violent movies, but the use of violence in this film is so effective. I can't think of another, like, let me kind of break it down to one of the main gore scenes in this film, which we got to talk about because it's probably one of the most effective scenes ever filmed, is the death of Murphy. Now Murphy is the main character. He's this police officer who, this is dystopian future. Detroit is run by these criminal cartels, and so the cops are on strike all the time. And the cops are getting killed left and right. And anyhow, so Murphy and his sidekick, so Murphy and Lewis, he has to go in and get these criminals. And anyhow, she gets knocked out. She's out of commission. He gets surrounded by these guys. And Clarence Boddicker, played by the guy from That 70s Show, which is so funny.
Red.
Red, yeah. He's like in that movie, At Your Average Dad from the 70s, and here he is, this vile, evil criminal guy, that just couldn't care, about anything. But so anyhow, the death of Murphy is probably one of the most intense scenes. I don't know about you, but what did you think? I mean, do you remember the first time you saw that? We were little kids when this came
out. Which is so weird too, because we talked about this a little bit during the First Blood episode, I think, but when I look back on it now, like movies like this, and like even some of the other ones, Predator and Total Recall and all of the Aliens, all of those, I mean, granted, we didn't see them in the theaters, but we saw them like when they were available. We would have been like 11 years old at the time, and I can't imagine allowing, I mean, I know that people do, but I can't imagine allowing an 11-year-old to sit down and watch Robocop.
Well, you know what? Think about it this way, though. And this is I think this is the truth about the man. Well, you don't have sons, so this might not be, your daughters probably don't have the same kind of hobbies and interests as my boys do. So Robocop and all the gore and all the language and everything in that movie, that's basically what Black Ops and all those video games are, only you're the guy doing all the shooting. if you watch it, yeah, because it's like F-bomb this, F-bomb that, and I'm going to blow this guy away, and, you're shooting people and shooting arms off. And so it's sort of weird. It's like when you look at it from a movie perspective, yeah, you wouldn't take your kid to see this movie, but at the same time, your kid's probably playing this game, which is kind of interesting because it's sort of like that type of violence that you saw in Robocop is now like 12, 13, 14-year-olds are playing this every day on their PS4.
The most recent thing I could think of that to compare this to would be like Deadpool.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and see, I couldn't imagine taking like 11 years old, third grader to see,
right.
Deadpool. Although,
right.
my wife's an elementary school teacher, and she has kids all the time that are like, yeah, we went and saw Deadpool last night. I'm like, what? What's wrong with your parents, dude?
No.
But the other thing, too, with the violence in this movie and the gore, not even the violence so much as, the violence is bad, but the gore. Because this came out in 87, and
Yeah.
you have to remember at the second half of the 80s, well, a lot of the 80s really, if this movie would have been classified, or if the storyline would have been a little bit different, and it would have been a horror movie, straight up horror movie, or a slasher movie, I guarantee you 3/4 of the gore would have been cut out.
Yeah.
Because, 87,
right.
that, it's right around the time when one of the most famously hacked, edited movies of slasher history came out, which was Friday the 13th Part 7, which a lot of that was cut out. And if you watch that movie, there's relatively zero gore in that movie. But then you have this movie where a guy gets his hand blown off, and not only does he get shot in the head, but then they like just focus in on this bullet wound in the dude's forehead. And then later on in the movie, a guy gets melted by toxic waste and then gets blown up by a car.
Yeah, and the thing about the gore in this film too is like that, again, going back to Murphy's death. Okay, so all these criminals basically surround and torment him. So the first thing they do is they surround him, they hold his arm down, and Clarence Boddicker, the main Red, basically from that '70s show, blows his hand off with a shotgun. And then they watch and laugh as he's trying to get up and try to get himself to stand up with his hand missing. And it's this very cruel, evil, like hard to watch scene, like where you're just like, you feel so bad for Murphy in that scene, and then they just blow him to pieces, and they just, it's like how long does that scene go on and on and on? It seems like, and there's actually an extended cut in the unedited version, which is hard to believe there is an unedited version, but there is, and like when you watch that, it's even longer, and it's like just so like it sets the stage for your desire to see how these guys are going to get they're going to get their due, and it's so effective because that's the cool thing about this film is that you want to see the bad guys get taken down after you know what they are capable of and what they do, and they make the bad guys really bad guys. Like some of the movies you watch where the bad guy isn't he's just kind of there, and you don't really think of him as like, maybe he does this or that, but you never really get to see his deeds. But this, when you see what these people are capable of, then you're like, yeah, I can't wait till RoboCop goes and gets these guys and takes them down. So and so that scene, it just sets it up to what happens next, and they basically take the corpse or what's left of Murphy, turn him into a cyborg, and it's all about this great storyline about sort of, corporate America and like that kind of the greed of these corporate guys and how it's all about money. And it's, they don't really care about law enforcement, and they're just creating this robot cop to make money, basically. And that's what it's all about. And there's these two competing guys in the corporate world. And it's just a great film. I can go on and on about this movie. I love it.
Yeah, the movie is set in the future, but it's set in Detroit.
Yes.
And they basically, it's kind of an odd storyline a little bit, because they're like, this corporation somehow is going to replace Detroit with this other city, this Delta City or whatever.
Right.
But in order to do so, they have to stop all of the crime in Detroit. So, that's part's a little... But, that's no different than any other movies from the same time period. Look at the storyline for Total Recall. It's completely ridiculous as well. But, yeah, like you said, this is one of those movies where you throw in and before you know it, it's like over. It's so effective, and the acting's not necessarily all that great. Although I will say that Peter Weller, I don't know how he did not get nominated for an Oscar for his portrayal of like a robot, because the way that he moves, like everything in the movie after he becomes Robocop, even his head and stuff, like it all like is like jerky, and his like movements when he's walking and everything. It's like, that is amazing. When we're talking about, again, going back to First Blood, when we were talking about that movie, how Stallone, like most of that movie, he acts with his body more than anything. It's the same thing in this movie. Like, you really believe that dude is a robot watching this movie. Like, every movement is just like robotic.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because Peter Weller is actually kind of a small, skinny guy. And, when you think of Robocop, you think of this big, muscular guy, robot, but it's really the suit. And clearly, obviously, they needed a skinny guy to fit into this suit. Because when you see Peter Weller without the suit on, before he's Robocop, when he's just a human being, he's just this, thin, small build actor. They really did a great job with the suit and everything. And it's very, very 80s, very well done. But another thing about this movie, it's a very human story too, because it's about, again, like we said, basically the cop who becomes Robocop, he signs his life over basically to the corporation when he dies. So when he's dead, the corporation owns his remains, and that's why they build him into this cyborg. And the cool thing about it is that it's like an identity thing, because here he is programmed to be this police officer, but then his brain starts to remember who he was prior to, getting shot by these criminals, and he starts to want to figure out who he really is. So it becomes this very human story, and then his partner, helps him to discover who he really was and all of that, and then he gets revenge on the guys who killed him, basically. So it's almost like, it's very similar to like, I don't know. It's a kind of a revenge story, sort of similar to like The Crow. Even it's like the guy gets resurrected and comes back to find this band of criminals who did this to him.
Yeah.
So it very much reminds me of that, because even like the criminals in The Crow are sort of like that, two real vicious thug types, and that's like with this one, they're like kind of over the top, vicious, just pure evil characters. Great bad guys in both films, and see, this is the kind of movie where you really, really want to see what happens to the bad guys. You want to see them get taken down. You're not like rooting for them at all, because you know what they've done to these people, and you're like, yeah, you really want to see RoboCop come in there. And yeah, great movie. I love all the humor in it, and like the whole humor where they're joking about capitalism and like how the country has become all about Reaganomics and all of that stuff. And like the whole thing with one of the best scenes too is when Ed 209, which is the first RoboCop that's built, which is ridiculous. It looks like something in a Star Wars movie. It's this big giant hulking thing. Why they would think that could patrol the streets or whatever, malfunctions and kills one of these corporate boardroom guys. And that's one of those over the top, like, a billion fires into this guy and shoots him to Swiss cheese. The president of the company's like, I'm so disappointed. It's gonna, how much money it's gonna cost to do this or whatever. And it's like, no regard whatsoever for this guy that died. It's a great tongue in cheek movie, and all those like little commercials too that they do, like for the fake heart and all that. Oh man, great film.
It's one of those movies that you love, and for whatever reason, it's probably been a good 20 years since the last time I saw it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's been, but it was one of those movies where I remembered everything about it for the most part. And then when I watched it again, I was like, this is exactly how I remember it. But I knew about, there's that one Benny Hill type show that's always on the TV.
Oh yeah,
with the
I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah, the dirty guy with the hot girls and stuff. But yeah. I forgot about the newscast that runs throughout this story, and then they also they throw in these like fake commercials, which is really cool. You were talking about that first robot that they introduced, the one that was supposed to be the original cop thing. That thing was all stop motion, and to me, even watching it now in 2019, you could tell it was stop motion and stuff, but like, you know what, that's cool. I would prefer that over a CGI thing in there.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Even the stop motion stuff and some of the scenes towards the end where RoboCop's fighting it, there's some and even RoboCop becomes stop motion in a couple of those scenes. But it's very entertaining, very well done. I loved it, I still love it. I know we're doing the original, so we're not doing sequels, but there is a RoboCop 2, which was kind of like it was like they tried to it's a pretty gory film, but it didn't live up to it was nowhere near as good as the first one. And then they really toned it down with RoboCop 3 and gave it a PG-13 rating, and they tried to get like the kid crowd, because that was probably around the time when they were releasing toys and whatnot. And then there was the horrible 2014, I think it was, remake of RoboCop, which was probably one of two movies of my entire 42 years of being alive that I've walked out on within like 20 minutes of the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hated it. Hated it. And the funny thing too is when it came out, and I knew I was following it. I followed like all the pre-production stuff and all that, and then I went out and bought the Blu-ray extended cut of RoboCop, and I watched it several times because I loved that movie so much, and I just couldn't believe how much I still liked it. And then I walked into the remake, and within about 20-25 minutes, and I'm like, I'm out of here. This is horrible. This is a waste of time. It's just terrible.
So did you really sneak into another movie and get your full 2 hours in at least?
No, I didn't. Oh. No, it just was like it was that bad though. It was like they took that character, the Murphy character, and it was just nowhere near as effective and good as this film. And I was like, yeah, this is a complete waste of my time.
Yeah, I don't know I can't remember if I've ever seen the remake or not. I probably have.
Do not waste your time. Do not. I think it was even like a PG-13 if I remember correctly. But it's just absolute crap.
This is the only, and it's not a complaint, but this is the only thing that I noticed being a grown-up watching this movie that I never really picked up on as a kid. So like you had said, so you have this main bad guy who is actually, it turns out he's actually working for the number 2 guy of this corporation that pretty much owns everything and is running everything.
Right.
In charge of all the cops and everything.
What is it? OCP?
Was it OCD or OCP or something?
OCP.
And so anyway, once Murphy, RoboCop, kind of starts remembering his past and stuff, and he starts remembering his murder, and he inadvertently comes across one of the guys and like recognizes him and all this stuff. From there, then he's like, oh, I got to find this other guy. And so he starts hunting down this guy who killed, the guy who actually killed him, the leader of the pack. And he finds him. And so the first thing that this guy says is, hey, man, I'm working for this other guy. And he didn't know it at the time, but RoboCop has this ability to record everything. So RoboCop is recording this. But anyway, he arrests the guy, takes him in to the police station and says, book the guy. And so what does this dude do? This guy who's like this crime ring leader dude who's, being accused of murdering all these cops and all this other stuff. What's he do from jail? Yeah, he calls this like second in charge guy at this major corporation for his one phone call And then, so they have this weird kind of like phone conversation where you're kind of like, wait, what? The dude's in jail. Why is he calling? Like, well, right away, that should be like, okay. And then,
yeah.
So then he gets out of jail, which I'm assuming this guy, like, just, made another phone call and got the guy released right away. And so then what does he do? Then he drives to his office to have a meeting with the guy. And I'm like, all right, so that's a little, like, maybe that piece they should have thought through a little bit on that one, but.
Yeah, well, it was.
But again, that's the only thing that where it kind of takes you out of the movie just a little bit when you're watching it, because you're like, wait, why would you call that guy? I mean, why wouldn't you call another guy then that guy calls that guy or something, Right.
And also, just another thing, going back to sequels and whatnot, they are working on a sequel called Robocop Returns, which is in production right now. And I think from what last I heard, they were considering, or there may be a chance that Peter Weller will be returning in the role. And it's another one of those sequels that, we've talked about all the different types of sequels out there, where they're basically going to forget about all of the part 2, part 3, and the remake, and it's just a follow up to the original film. So, and it's actually based on a script that was written way back when too, from what I understand, and it's been rewritten, and there's probably been a lot of changes since the original draft. But it was originally what's his name, Bonkamp, is that his last name? I can't think. The guy who was connected to that Alien sequel that they were going to do a follow up to Aliens, and he was going to direct this, and he was attached to this new RoboCop for a long time, and actually just recently, I think last week or the week before, he said that he's no longer attached to it, but the movie is still happening. So those of you who love this original film, this Paul Verhoeven film, get ready, because they're doing a direct follow up, and they're going to try to keep it in the same tone as the original.
So I wonder if with that, if they're going to kind of do like the whole Terminator thing, if they're going to have Peter Weller come back and he's going to be like the original RoboCop, but he's going to be like an older version of that, to where like the organic part of RoboCop ages.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That'd be kind of cool. So he's like all wrinkled and stuff, and then maybe not moves as fast as he used to.
Well, the cool thing, with RoboCop at least, he doesn't have much actual organic. I mean, he's only got like the face basically, and most of it, and then the inner stuff.
Yeah, which is kind of weird that you have any, cause that, like when they're doing the whole like, oh, he's got to eat this goop to sustain his organic stuff. I'm like, that's kind of weird. So where does he go to the bathroom at? Is he wearing a diaper under that thing?
Right. Oh man. So I'm gonna say Beyond All, this is a classic science fiction film. This is a must-see for anybody who loves the genre. It is on the top of the list. It's right up there with like the original Terminator and, gosh, what else? I mean, Predator, all those 80s action films, and Aliens. It's right up there with like those great late 80s, mid to late 80s sci-fi films that just exploded at that time. Like, those movies are the best examples that I can think of. And oh man, you got to see it if you haven't seen it, and don't even worry about any of the sequels. Steer clear from the remake and just go watch this original film and grab yourself some. Well, I guess you could kind of call it a beer and popcorn film, but you got to get yourself some really good beer and some really good popcorn.
Yeah, I would agree. This is definitely one of those movies. Like I said, it was forever in between viewings for me, but I knew that I loved it. It's not one of those movies where I had any sort of like hesitation going into watching it again after so many years, to where I was like, I hope it holds up. I mean, I was ready to go, man. I got it, and I was like, let's throw that in and let's watch it. It's going to be great. And sure enough, started it, and I was like, yep, it's great. And it was insane how good this movie is after all of these years. And this is one of those ones, for example, like the Halloween series, where there's a bunch of the sequels that I do like, and then they're like, oh, we're going to retcon everything. It's like, oh, come on, don't do that. To where this one, the sequel, I don't know if I've ever seen Robocop 3. I might have, and if I have, I don't remember it. But like Robocop 2, I care less about, really. So
you remember it?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure I've seen Robocop 2, but I if I have, I don't remember. I'm almost positive I have, but it's one of those things that's been so long, I have no idea what it was about. But like them doing another one to this, I'm like, yeah, whatever. If I don't like it, that's fine. I still have like the original.
Oh, yeah.
And this story is one of those ones to where it didn't need a sequel ever either. They just left it like perfect where,
perfect
Robocop,
ending.
And it's done.
Yep, he's finding out who he is. He's taking on the Murphy name. That's it. Wrap it up at that point.
If you've never seen Robocop, then either you're less than 30 years old or you're insane.
Go see it.